That Charlotte Bronte, she's a breath of fresh Ira. Hi everyone, welcome to Paulina's Pages. My name is Paulina and today we'll be talking about A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. This is a spoiler-free review. Anything that I mentioned here is either in the description or in the first few pages. This book rendered me speechless. I don't know how to adequately express my thoughts because my god, there's so much to say about this novel and I just can't find the words to do it in a way that portrays my feelings accurately. So today's a little messier than usual. Anyone else had this problem? But okay, let's just film the review anyway. Look, it's getting closer to the end of November, so I don't think it's too ridiculous to say that this possibly may be the best book I've read this year. While there were quite a few things I didn't like, I will of course name them, and even though this is definitely not the book for everyone, more on that later, it is undeniably one of the most powerful pieces of literature I've ever read, and I know it's going to stick with me. It's a 700+ page book that left me emotionally wrecked and I only got into it around 20% through. So let's talk about the first 20% because that was the main source of my displeasure. For a start, the first 10 pages were an information dump. If you follow my videos, you know how atrocious I am with names. And while I was fine with remembering 5 of them, all the characters and the way that the narration alternated just had me completely lost. I only understood what was going on around 40% through, and I had that moment around part 3 when everything just clicked and made sudden sense. At that point, I finished the book in 2 days because it had me fully hooked on everything, and right after that, oh yeah, I lost my ability to feel emotions. Let's talk about that. After the book, I felt emotionally dead. Every single thing I did, the dishes, homework, it had me thinking about this massive literary accomplishment. I just couldn't get it out of my head. I could only pick up a book, and I mean that I couldn't read anything for almost 3 days. Luckily, the book I picked up was The Picture of Dorian Gray, which was wonderful. Otherwise, I felt a deep and difficult reading slump coming on. Because you know, there wasn't enough depression, suicide, domestic violence, and mental abuse. I just had to add a reading slump to top it all. Yes, everything you've heard about this book in regards to emotional difficulty is true. From the very beginning, you have this tense feeling and it's at its worst part 2 and part 3. Maybe you're not that invested in the plot yet, and that's fine, it's not a plot-driven book. But I guarantee just the tension and the anticipation of finding out what happens next will keep you reading this book. Characters. At the beginning of this book, I didn't care about you and was very worried because if this book revolves around you, it's not a great sign. Turns out, nothing to worry about. The book centers around 4 college students and there's an equal focus around their lives, but later on it's mostly about Jude and the other ones are less developed further on. What I love is that even though Jude plays the main role, the rest of the characters are still incredibly developed, so raw, real, and realistic. Hands down, one of the best characters I've ever read about. This is what I want when I say human. They jump out. You get lost in their story. And also the writing, but more on that later. For now, Jude. This book is essentially a character study, even though it's of course much more than that. It's an astonishing piece about life, love, and hope. It goes to very dark places, and I was so impressed by how the author tackled them. The prose had a very real sense, as well as that the characters were very diverse. Jude was my favorite character from the beginning. It was so great to read about a character who struggles with mental health and has a disability for a change, because I think this book did a great job of portraying it as a normal thing, not something you feel pity for, because I think books have a tendency to write about perfect, healthy people and make people who are different seem abnormal, and I just think that it's horrible to have this. It promotes a certain mindset, and it was so refreshing to read about Jude. So many issues he faced so bravely, and I was fully invested in his story until the very end. Sometimes I feel like I know more about Jude than I do about my friends. Details about his life were so cleverly intercepted in the prose, but also he had a very distinct character. I feel like I would know what he would do in certain situations, and because of this, the story felt very intimate. It was like I was right there for all the joy and the heartbreak. The narration style is something incredible. The writing style is so distant yet close, serious yet with certain notes of humor, dark and despondent but also hopeful. It's everything, it's life. Even if the story didn't have me interested, I would have been willing to read for the writing alone, which is pretty much what happened with Norwegian Wood by Haruki Murakami. So far, I've mostly depicted this book as being the book of my life. You know, like when you just find the book. But there were some things I disliked. For example, lack of historical context. Look, the story worked. Everything fit in its place impeccably, but I would have loved more story about how they met and like why are they friends, real life events and how they've affected them, historical heritage, that sort of thing. I'm glad that Jude's illness didn't define him, but I'd like to see how he achieved so many things that he is. It must have been tremendously difficult, especially with the trauma he's going through, so I think it's a very interesting aspect to have been explored. The second thing is the fact that I'm wondering was that this book really needed to be this long. Look, for lack of better ways of saying this, is the author preying on us? Is the author preying on our miserable emotions from this despairing piece? It just feels that the length is done on purpose to emotionally hit us. I don't see any way in regards of making this book shorter, but the last few parts could have been better in its way of intercepting happy and sad moments. A little bit of gray, if you will, not just black and white. Look, if you're looking for a happy book, I'm telling you this right now. Leave and never come back to this one. If you're looking to explore writing, check out The Dutch House and the role that setting plays. Off the top of my head, I can't think of any other books that explore writing in a great way. But my point is, if you're here for the writing and not for the misery exclusive, just leave. Just like burn it if you're not ready for it emotionally, because there's no point in getting invested in it just for it to destroy you. Genuine warning, I thought I would be fine, but I wasn't. But I'm more or less fine now, and it's been 2 weeks. Final thoughts in terms of writing and prose, the book is monumental and I can't give it anything less than 5 stars because I really liked it. In terms of vulture-like emotional hunting, the rating is like 1,000 out of 10. Look, if you're more into fast-paced character and plot sort of stories, this is not the book for you. Kind of stories and don't feel like slowly dying inside over the course of this book. Seriously, I'm not being dramatic. Drop it. I thought this was a very emotional story, so I don't regret reading it even with all the cons. Thanks for watching and let me know what you think in the comments.